Charles Purcell presents.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for listening. This is Charles Purcell, the aforementioned. We got to take a deep dive into something today. We'll be back next week with the fun stuff. We got the CBP ensemble working on a few things. But we need to take a little deep dive today into something very important. And let me start this way. How shall I put it? People are not morons. People are not stupid. Don't think they are. Especially about their own lives, okay? People understand their own lived experience. You can't second guess them on that. They know what their lives are. They know what's going on. They know when they're being screwed. They know that they're working hard and not seeing the payoff. That's the way the world is right now. So people are not stupid. Don't second guess them about their own lived experience. Having said that, most of us are absolute morons about politics. Have you ever been in a conversation with people, with a friend or a group of friends, and it becomes clear immediately they have no idea what they're talking about? They don't know the basics of anything, about how government works. They don't know anything really about the issues. If it's election time, they don't really know what the candidates stand for. Even if they're really gung-ho for a candidate, they won't be able to actually explain their positions or the positions of the other candidates. They don't know. They're idiots. But I'll bet you've been in cover. Okay, let's set politics aside for a minute. Say you are well-versed and well-trained in a particular area. Food, for instance. Maybe you really know a lot about food and about growing food and about nutrition and about what's healthy and not healthy. Maybe you've really studied this. Maybe it's even your profession. And you hear other people talking about food and you know that they're idiots. So it's frustrating, right? Choose whatever you're kind of good at. Choose whatever you're well-versed in. Gardening, food, plumbing, auto repair, I don't know, history, literature, whatever you're good at, whatever you know about, whatever you studied, or maybe even made your profession. And you hear other people pontificating all the time about your area of expertise. You know they're idiots, right? But here's the thing. As nice as it would be if we all knew about nutrition, or if we all knew about auto repair, or plumbing, or English literature, that'd be nice. But we can't all be experts in that. But we all have to be at least somewhat well-versed in politics, because that's our responsibility. If we want to live in a democracy, we have to take the time and the effort to become less moronic. You know the old thing about, you may have heard this, you know the character Michael Scott from the sitcom The Office, right? He's the clueless guy. He's misogynistic and he's racist in this kind of dopey, nice kind of way. He just doesn't understand. He doesn't get it. He's not self-aware, right? And the old canard is, well, every office has a Michael Scott. And if your office doesn't have a Michael Scott, well, then you're probably the Michael Scott. Okay? So, if what I've said so far you don't relate to, you don't really get what I'm talking about, well, you're probably the Michael Scott of your group. You're probably the political moron. Or maybe you and your whole group are a bunch of Michael Scotts. But we got to get better at this. Again, it's not a hobby. It's not just something that we're into. It's not like talking about sports or, talking about politics is talking about the lifeblood of our collective lives. We got to get this together. Now, some people, when talking about politics, are very good. They're very good at spouting media talking points that they've gotten from the pundits on TV. Because what little they do know about politics comes from them, from those cable panel shows. And they deal almost entirely, just almost 100% on the race, if it's a campaign season, or the drama of politics, all of that, all the tangential stuff. There are a couple different definitions of politics. They deal in the worst definition of politics. Who's up, who's down, who's winning, who's losing, and almost nothing on the actual issues that are important to us and important to the nation. And most every television pundit you're going to hear is actively, intentionally misrepresenting positions. Because by their very nature, by their very definition, their opinions are based on their own agenda. And so they're spinning. Or like Nostradamus, they think they can predict the future. They think they can talk about future events. What are the down ballot implications if we nominate this particular presidential nominee? Which voters will swing which way? How will certain demographics impact the race? Things like that. It's all so ridiculous. And the data shows, just look it up, they're nearly always wrong. Well, you don't even have to look it up. You can just by basic reasoning. If you got 14 different pundits, all with their own little spin, all with their own little agenda, and they're all prognosticating, and they're all different, well, 13 out of the 14 are going to be wrong. That's about the ratio. 13 out of 14 political opinions, when it comes to prognosticating about the future, are going to be wrong. There's nobody more wrong in this world than TV pundits. So while some of us are just morons about politics and government, we don't know what the hell we're talking about, some of us have all this information, but we're getting it from this source. So even the so-called informed voters, they fall prey to this punditry and this strategic way of thinking. And then we take on that persona. And then we cast a quote-unquote strategic vote. Two perfect examples from the most recent election, and the 2016 election for that matter. Well, I'm very happy to vote for a woman. Of course I would vote for a woman. But most people aren't comfortable with a woman as president, so most people won't vote, so that makes that candidate not viable, so I want to go with the winner, so I won't vote for a woman either. Even though I'd love to have a woman. The other example, I'm not afraid of socialism. I know it's really not socialism like the people on the right are saying. It's just democratic socialism like the Nordic countries. I have no problem voting for a socialist. Oh, but most people won't. I know, because I heard the pundits tell me. So I won't vote for the socialists either, even though I totally believe in it. I firmly believe that's the best course, but I won't because my vote is strategic. So even informed voters do the most moronic thing, and they vote strategically. Without the strategic vote, so-called, well, we'd have a lot more women and a lot more socialists in office. And we'd have some democracy. And we'd have some equity in gender. Taking a wide look right now, okay? Let's go up 20,000 feet and just look at how this thing works. In re-election years, when there's an incumbent on the ballot, the incumbent president is nearly untouchable. It's really, really tough. It's really hard. Regardless, almost nothing else matters. The state of the economy, the issues at hand, whatever's going on in the news, it's really a steep, steep climb to beat an incumbent. And why? Well, because it's only season 4 of this TV show. It's only season 4, so I'm still in. Let's give this person another 4 years. There's also a cycle of establishment versus anti-establishment, outsider versus insider. If your guys are on the inside, if your party, the people you identify with, are on the inside, well, then you're an insider. Especially on that, like I say, when there's an incumbent on the ballot. After 8 years, well, then everybody wants to be anti-establishment. Then you want change. Change. It's all about change. James Carville famously said, it's the economy, stupid. Well, it's not the economy, stupid. It's not always the economy. It's change versus not change. It's change, stupid. At the 8-year cycle, it's change. After 8 years, the voters always want change, regardless of what that is. Do you know how many people voted for Barack Obama in 2012? And then these same people voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Huge amounts of voters did that. It makes no sense. We're idiots. We're morons. But they wanted change. They wanted to blow it up. We always want to blow it up after 8 years. After 8 years, the TV show's getting old. It usually sucks. I mean, look at television shows in their 8th season. and beyond. Big Bang Theory, Scrubs, Friends, Family Guy, that 70s show, The Office, which I mentioned, they all sucked in season 8. Nobody wants to go past season 8. And it's just, and for all of us morons, it's just one big damn TV show, especially when it comes to the presidential cycles. Change, every time. 8 years, change. So what do we do? What do we do? We need to, somehow, we need to stupid-proof our elections. I don't know exactly how. I mean, this is really tough. It requires some pretty big changes. Big systemic type changes. So I got a couple of ideas I want to toss out here. Somehow, we got to end the duopoly of Democrats and Repugs. Gerrymandering would go a long way if we could somehow find a way through state legislatures, through the courts, somehow to get a handle on gerrymandering. It's killing us. Somehow we've got to allow for third parties to have a path. The two parties have such a lock on the system. And I don't know how we let this happen. You know that the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee, the parties themselves are private entities. They can do pretty much what they want. They're private entities. They are not beholden to the public at all. So somehow we have to try to democratize this system. Allow third parties some path for success, or at least allow some alternative voices within the parties. Election reform is definitely something we need to find a way. But of course, that requires policymakers writing laws. And you got to get the right lawmakers to write the laws, and they're not going to write laws that are a detriment to their own personal political cause. So election reform is another tough climb. That's another reason to be very careful and very committed about your votes on the local and state level, because those are the people who wind up in Washington eventually. And state legislatures are really, really important when it comes to these kinds of issues. Gerrymandering, election reform. There are lots of ideas for election reform. Ranked voting, where you vote for you rank the candidates 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the system spits out the winner. That's a kind of automatic runoff. They're not identical, but very similar. We could have a national primary, which some have suggested. I think a series of national primaries, maybe a couple, 2 or 3. There's no reason you can't have a couple of votes. It can be done logistically. Have a national primary and then winnow the field. You take the top 4, say, and then you do a ranked voting for the top 4 and one more primary vote. Really, the solutions are out there. It's a matter, again, it's just a matter of political will, and the people who write the laws are the ones who benefit from the current system, so it's a tough climb. Election day should certainly be a national holiday. It's got to be easier to vote by mail, early voting. And again, if you're paying attention to your local and state politics, that can go a long way. Local and state entities can go a long, long way in making this better. And this is long term, but, not so much. And that is, we gotta start teaching civics in schools better. For the life of me, I don't know how anyone gets out of high school being so dumb about politics. Basic literacy for citizens. What the government is, the 3 branches, how it works, what your responsibility is as a citizen and a voter. They haven't found a way to teach it without the controversies. So conservative parents and liberal parents, they get all upset. Oh, you're not going to teach my kids how to vote? Because there's a natural tendency in these classes for policy issues to come up, and then it gets very dicey. So teachers and administrators and curriculum writers just hold up their hands and say, oh, okay, just leave me out of this. But we've got to find a way to teach basic civics, teach basic government, teach basic citizenship without the ideological stuff. You're 18 years old and you graduate from high school, you better really have that down. It's because it's not that tough. It's really not a difficult subject. It's not advanced algebra. right? I didn't get advanced algebra. They lost me. I was very much into just regular algebra, and I kind of was into geometry. That was pretty cool. But oh my goodness, we get into advanced algebra and trig, and you might as well just be talking another language. I didn't get it. Politics is not like that. Civics, basic civics, government is not like that. It's not that complicated. Any dope can learn it. So teach the kids. And then finally, and this is a big one, media. I know, huge topic. We go on for hours and hours here. But, I started by talking about how the pundits have us by the throat, right? I love to repeat Malcolm X's words because they're so perfect. They got us hoodwinked. They got us bamboozled. They got us hypnotized. I mean, it's horrible. The media situation right now is really bad. Now, the fairness doctrine, which existed for many years, I think during the Reagan administration, they let that go. And it's the fairness doctrine basically mandated by law that media outlets had to be fair. They had to present both sides of controversial issues. Now, they got rid of the fairness doctrine. Part of me says probably the right thing to do. You might be surprised to hear me say that, because it's just kind of unworkable. It's maybe even unconstitutional. But the thing is, we have to find some way to encourage and promote what the fairness doctrine aimed to achieve. So without the doctrine itself and the way it worked, we still got to find a way to reach those same goals, to get a fair hearing of issues. We always talk about getting money out of politics. Well, we got to get money out of media. And I know that sounds impossible, but I think we're doomed unless we can get money out of media. We got to take the profit motive out of media, take it away from media. And without that profit motive, they will do a much better job. Because all the producers, all the program hosts, all the journalists, they're not bad people to their bone. They're not a bunch of evil, weird, crazy, maniacal people wanting to cause havoc. No, they're all serving that bottom line. So they have to keep up the drama. They have to focus on the issues that don't really matter to people, but people care about because they punch all their emotional buttons and they get viewers and clicks and listeners and readers, and that's what they need. So the profit motive is absolutely distorting and twisting media into this evil force. So it's the old thing of good people working in a bad system. I really believe that. So what are we going to do? Even though we are morons about politics, as I said, they're not idiots about their own lives. They know when they're being screwed. But they've also got this really weird, misinformed, winner-loser and good-evil thing going. To people on the right, I'm a libtard. Immigrants, they're rapists and murderers. They got this anti-intellectual thing going. They don't want ivory tower professors telling them how to live their life. They don't want science telling them what kind of light bulb to use. Okay, so there's all of that. But most people, the great majority of people, are not ideological. Look what they did in 2016. They voted for this total nut job because he wanted to blow everything up. Because they knew they were being screwed. They know about their own lives. It's politics they're stupid about. So most people are not ideological. And if somehow, some way, we can get into their lives and get Medicare for all, for example, they'll never give it up. They'll say, don't touch my M4A. Once universal health care as a right is part of their everyday lives, their everyday lived experience, once universal public pre-K through college education is provided for their kids, basic stuff, just really basic stuff, they will never give it up. Once they've got paid sick leave, they will never look back and say, oh gee, it was a lot better when I didn't have paid sick leave. Once they have a guaranteed living wage, do you think they're ever going to go back? Oh no, it's all right, just pay me what you want. I don't need a guaranteed living wage. No. Once we have these things, now they are part of their lived experience. And they'll never give them up. Job security, a clean, healthy environment, a planet that's not dying. The ideas will win. They will win easily. But we can't push these ideas at the ballot box, it seems, because they're wrapped up in ideology and because they're wrapped up in the spin of the political parties and of the media. We can't get these ideas in under the current system. That's why the current system needs to be reformed through education, election reform, media reform, political reform. If somehow we can make that happen, if we can make those reforms happen, we can institute a few of these policies, it will transform people's lives and it will transform them as voters because we only know our own lived experience. But if somehow universal health care, paid sick leave, guaranteed living wages, job security, clean, healthy environment, all of this becomes part of their lived experience, then the ideas win, the people win. It's a win-win. It's not a win-lose. And that's where we are now. We're in a win-lose, especially on the right. So much of what we hear from the right is the delight they take in being the winner and the libtards and the left being the losers. Oh, loser, right? They want winners and losers. That's how they think. I don't want them to lose. The very worst of the worst, the so-called deplorables, I don't want them to lose. I want them to win. All the things that I want for me and for my kids, I want it for them and for their kids. It's a very different way of, it's diametrically opposed, these two different visions. I want everyone to gain. When I was a kid, there was this basic divide between conservatives and liberals, but conservatives, at least most of them, and from what I was hearing, what I understood from them, was they wanted everybody to do better. They wanted everybody to thrive. They wanted everyone to succeed. They just thought that their private enterprise way of doing things was the best way for everyone to succeed. Well, that is gone. That's off the map now. Most conservatives you hear now, especially the far right wing, and let's face it, they're the ones who dominate that side of the equation. The extremists are now dominant on the right. They don't speak in that language anymore about wanting everyone to succeed, all boats be lifted. No, it's strictly, I got mine, screw you. There's been a fundamental shift over my lifetime. So in the end, in what I envision, it's not my side winning, it's not my base, and then other people losing. Now, I want ideas to lose, sure. Some ideas have to just be gone forever. Fascism, white supremacy, authoritarianism, those ideas need to lose. But I want the best for everybody. That hardcore right spectrum of the political scale, those ideas have to be banished, gone, forever. And then once that happens, sure, there are different ideas. I don't want a monopoly on ideas. Democracy is about debate and compromise. I'm still okay with that. I'm always okay with that. I've always been okay with that. But let's have an actual representative spectrum. The way it stands now, it's completely out of whack. You know, when you put the leaders of the day on a scale, when you put Bernie Sanders, for example, on the far left side of the scale. Now, that's just wrong. I'm getting back to basic political literacy. That's just 100% wrong. On any honest scale, Bernie's kind of just a little bit left of center. Someone like Joe Biden, definitely to the right of center. Pretty far to the right of center. Somebody like Donald Trump, he's fallen off the right cliff. So yes, a battle of ideas, constant debate and compromise, those are good things. Those are good things. But if you were living in 1936 Germany, you wouldn't say, oh, well, we have to debate Adolf Hitler and win on the ideas. No, you have to destroy those ideas. Some ideas have to be destroyed. So, bottom line. In the system I'm calling for, in a perfect world, and you know what? Forget I said that. It doesn't have to be a perfect world. This is not a utopian vision. This is very, very, very doable. This is what we need to accomplish, and in short order, because we're falling off the cliff and climate crisis is killing us. We need to do this quick. We need to do this now. It can be done. The system I'm calling for, it's just basic democracy in its simplest terms. It's not twisted and distorted by money in media, money in politics. as I said, there's still going to be a debate of ideas, but with a spectrum that includes an actual real left and doesn't include this extreme fascist, racist right. That's gone. Because yes, I do want to banish some ideas. Fascism, racism, sexism, misogyny. I know you can't reach into people's minds and just grab their ideas by the throat and toss them away. I know you can't do that. But as I've said, when people experience some equity and some justice in their lived lives, that'll go a long way to banishing those ideas forever. But I don't want to banish people. I don't want losers. Even the worst of the worst of the worst by today's standards, the deplorables. I don't want them to lose, quote unquote. I want the ideas that have them by the throat. I want them to lose. And when those ideas really, really die forever is when people experience the benefits of real democracy, of social equality and economic justice in their own personal lives. When they are in their own lived experience, then they become real, and then they are set in concrete forever. They won't have to be convinced, these people, every 4 years. They won't have to be sold. We don't have to cajole or trick or connive or... They will be embedded in everyone's psyche once they've experienced them. They will own it, and they will not give it up ever. To get there, we have to become better voters. Has to be media reform, take the money out. Has to be education reform. We got to get kids leaving high school understanding what it means to be a citizen, understanding basic government. There's just no reason in this world we can't get that done. And we have to have election reform. Our current election system is broken. There are great ideas out there. There are great proposals. This is absolutely doable. When I say I want us to be better voters, I don't mean you have to agree with me. I mean be better informed. Voting in such a way that matches with your own values and lived experience. I trust my fellow Americans to do the right thing as long as we are not the dupes of corporate media or the hostage of political parties. You know, voting strategically or voting out of fear, that whole thing. But that's exactly what we're doing right now. We can do better. I know we can do better. I have faith in us. But certain forces have us by the throat. And we have to somehow escape from that grip and make it happen. I know we can. I know we can. All right. As I said, the CBP Ensemble is working on some stuff for next week. We'll have a little bit of fun. All right. I love you. Thanks. This episode of Charles Bursell Presents is available right now wherever you find your podcasts, or go to the website charlesbursell.com for the full archive and all the other series in the podcast family. Follow, comment, and contact me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to our flagship station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Theme music composed and performed by Peter Donalds. From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Bursell.